The stream is offline. Okay, well, it should start. Is up. You let me know you're in. Let me know when it starts. Why am I in a little window? It's up. Okay, so let me ask you this. Is the audio quality like usual when we do this, or is it shit like through my iMac? Do it so it sounds like normal on the good microphone. Okay. I don't know why. Am I a little box on your? Okay. Okay. I suppose we'll wait a couple minutes to see if we can get anybody in here before we start. So it sounds good. Okay, we got Gregory Myers, Hunter, Kevin. Hello, folks, and Eski Malacheo. Okay, and we have Ryan. Okay, so we have 9 people, and Greenfeld and Kevin Fullington. Okay, so we got a couple people. I mean, we'll give a little bit, maybe 5 or 10 minutes to see if we get any people in here. Hopefully you won't experience a ton of lag. I can tell on my end that there's some lag because I'm in a freeze frame here on my screen. Ryan and I are in Skype, by the way. We really hoped that we were going to get this sorted out so that we could both be in a video at the same time. And truth be told, we really just assumed it would work. We just, the night before attempted to, just, okay, it'll work. Let's test it. And then, of course, oh, fuck, a whole bunch of stuff, So we, I should say this, Evan, your brother is your favorite fan. Your biggest fan. I respect that, Evan, because I know that my brother would, would not say that about me. So, a couple things before we start. Really, the big Halloween episode, truthfully, it is recorded. It's not this one. This one's something a little different. The Halloween episode, I'm not even going to tell you what the topic is, but you know how, like, we do a, every now and then we do, like, this big podcast. I'll answer that in a second, Red Monk. So every now and then we do, like, an episode that's, like, way better than usual, right? It's one of our great ones. And anyway, you know those ones when we do it. It's our Skinwalker Ranches. It's our, what's it called? The Mandela Effect. It's the hikers that got lost up on Dietlaf Pass. So those are the big ones. Like, we know they're going to be big before we do them. And this Halloween one that we recorded, I know it's going to, it has the potential to be another one of those really great episodes. And one of the things I did that is still not done, but I started, I'm hoping to have done by Monday for Halloween, is I actually went in and recorded some background music. It's not like music like songs, but just something for, to set the atmosphere and to kind of engage you a little more and bring you in. So I'm really hoping you guys dig that. And if you do, I plan to, maybe do a dozen when I have some time to do a really good job that I can recycle through some podcasts. Just, bam, from the Spice Weasel, take it up a notch. So that's the goal with that. And of course, if this live thing works out well, that might be something that we look into as well. I do think I should tell you guys a little bit about why we haven't been as active. Like, you guys knew that, you knew some of the stuff leading up. I was having a baby, and because of that, I did an album before he was born, yada yada. And by the way, Red Monk, my boy is doing awesome. In fact, I look forward to seeing the little guy every day. He cracks me up. So, what that's actually a big part of why we haven't been doing as much lately. Um, that like I knew it was going to take up time, but I never thought it was going to be as time consuming. Not that it's a bad thing, but it just makes doing what we usually do really hard because it was such a time sink already. So what we're looking at doing this live stuff here, this is a possible way for me to really cut down on the time. Like I don't have to record it, I don't have to edit it the same way. I don't like. There's a whole bunch of stuff that I get to cut out of the process. So if this works out really well, this might be the regular format we do, and every now and then we'll do like a special one like the Halloween one, and like some extra like atmospheric music will be thrown in and so on. And I feel like there's something else I was gonna say, but I'm drawing a little bit of a blank here. But oh, right. The other reason is I don't know if you guys remember, we signed with a network. Really, really bad decision on our part. It really wrecked stuff in a way beyond what we thought was a worst case scenario. So I've already gone through the process to try and separate, and not too many specifics, but needless to say, it needs to happen before we can do this the way that that we want to do it. So that's that. Now, with that said, we got a couple people here. So thank you for the congrats. And that was for Amber Lone. Thank you, Walter. I should say right out of the gate, is there anything you guys ever wanted to ask before we even start the show? We'll have like a little bit of I'll answer you right now on the stream. Shoot, get some stuff out there. We should have asked that and took the answer. That's right. Ryan's telling me, by the way, that stuff. He's my little coach in my ears. All right. Oh yeah. Anyone that's in Evan, I know that you're here in Newfoundland. I'm gonna be on CBC Radio Monday, doing a little bit on Halloween, so that you should tune in for that. More stories from Newfoundland. I'd love to get more stories from Newfoundland. That it's something I actually reached out to in my in my own we have a Facebook community and stuff like that, and I've been in the paper and stuff like that. But I know there's stories here, but it's really, really hard to get people to come out and share it. Actually, the best story we got was what Ryan got by accident with his dad. I think it's like 8:15, Evan, but his dad got it at random at a restaurant. So that was really that was a bizarre. That's the Bell Island Devil, by the way, for those of you who have watched it. That's in Newfoundland. So I'm going to answer a couple questions here. Let's see. No politics. No worries. I don't like politics. Favorite podcast I've ever done? That's a really good question. Oh, what's my favorite podcast I ever done? Ryan's a Skinwalker. I'm not sure what mine is, to be honest. We've done so many great ones. I mean, I have a couple favorites. Honestly, the Bell Island one was one of my favorites. But my favorite version of it was the one Ryan first told me when it was fresh in his head. You guys didn't get to hear that one, but it was still a great story that you heard. We were supposed to interview him, and that never materialized. So that was one. Of course, Skinwalker Ranch is one of my favorite ones as well. The demonic possession one will always hold a special place in my heart because of the aftermath that happened to Ryan because of it. That was pretty cool. Cracks me up even now. I bring it up, the couple times we met during the show. I always bring that up. Remember that time when? Yeah, so that's a favorite of mine. The Black-Eyed Children one we did with the lady where it actually explained what it might be was another favorite. We got a lot. It's really hard for me to pick, but those are some that I really liked. What's my worst paranormal experience? For me, what's my worst paranormal experience? Honestly, when Ryan and I were into the what's it called? Not paranormal. The Satanism, theistic Satanism. A lot of strange stuff happened around that time. That you know, we saw some stuff. I mean, some of our stories actually came out during that time. We've done a couple podcasts on it, but more than anything, it was like a real soul sucking feeling that I had. It was a very dark feeling all the time that didn't really go away. That took a while to years actually to get out of that. And even today, I mean, there are pieces of that sometimes reach out and drag me back a little on a mental level. So that was an odd time. I really wouldn't mess with it today. Now, next question. How did we meet? Well, we actually met through a crazy ex-friend. He was my really good friend for years, and he got into this flaky kind of way. I don't know how to explain it, but anyway, every now and then he would show up with different friends. Every like so many weeks, he had a new group of friends, and he acted like he was best friends with them. And I hadn't talked to him in a long time at that point. And then when we met up again, Ryan was just in his car, and along with another two people I never knew. And Ryan and I were in the back seat, and I believe we began to discuss video games, which were not something that our other friends were into at all. And we start talking about the Elder Scrolls Morrowind, which at that point neither one of us knew anybody else who played it, and both Ryan and I were like extremely big fans of it, and so that was some common ground. And then it turned out we were both into like the paranormal and ghosts and stuff. And then it just so happened that he lived right next to where I lived, and we didn't know it. So we were back and forth to one another's house almost every day, and just experimenting with the paranormal, like trying to create stuff. I had all these different musical projects that I'd get Ryan to try and help me come up with weird sounds. Just finding anything around the house to record, and yeah, so that's where it started. It was pretty cool. Actually, I got a lot of fond memories of back then. So we had. For anybody who's just joining, Ryan wanted me to mention that he's not on the stream. He is in the chat, but he can't. We couldn't get this to work the way we wanted to. We really did leave it to the last minute, and we thought it would just work. Just totally never. So this is more of a test for right now. And as I said to the original people that came in, the big Halloween episode is still coming. It's recorded. I'm just throwing in a bit of extra bells and whistles, and that is I'm hoping to have it up for Halloween, like on Halloween. It's going to be a kick-ass episode. I'm very much looking forward to the feedback on that. So with that said, how about we kick stuff off, and like as we go along, after I tell a little story, if someone wants to jump in and share a little bit or ask some questions, great. And I might just take some stories at random from the website that we haven't covered yet, and just do this totally on the fly by the seat of my pants kind of thing, and just see how it goes, and if this is something that maybe we should do more often. Okay, so the first story I want to start with is originally what our plan was to do some stories on black magic, people who have been murdered through the occult. This is a freaky thing. There's no control over that. Like, you don't have control over somebody else, what they're going to do. And even to, diagnose that you have that problem, who do you go to? It's a very, like, most people would think that they would be thought of as crazy if they were to go to anybody, not to mention who can really help, right? So anyway, this is a story I came across on the internet. Now, India is a place that's known for having, a lot of black magic there. It's actually very prominent over that way. And so I came across this story, and of course it comes from India. It comes from, a native from there. And anyway, I don't know what his name was. I'm just going to refer to him as the narrator. And the friend that actually happened to, he uses an alias, what he calls, that's cool, Hunter, what he calls T, okay? So anyway, him and T, they were really good friends, and they were a lot of like how I am with, me and Ryan, I guess we got a lot of layers, but I had a friend one time named Paul, and like the only real thing that we've really shared is like a sense of humor, right? I mean, that was it. Whereas like Ryan and I got the humor, we got the paranormal, we kind of got all this stuff going on. But this guy's relationship with his friend is like my old friend Paul. It's like we had the humor, and that was about it. There was no seriousness, there was no whatever. And so anyway, they worked at the same place of business, and the narrator, he just happened to be in this position because his friend T, he wanted to get this promotion. In fact, he was looking forward to getting this promotion for, there was a sweetheart he had that, he felt like he had to have this promotion in order to make that work, bring her in. And so anyway, the narrator, I mean, he actually had some, I guess, information about who was doing the hiring that only he was privy to, that he was able to share with, his friend to help his chances. And so he did. He shared the information. He got his, wish. He got the promotion. He got his wife. He got to marry her. So leading up to that, when she was a fiance, all was well at first, and then the friend T started to come around, and he had some weird questions that started to get around their circle of friends. Like one time he came around asking about black magic. If anybody had known anything about black magic, and they all thought it was weird, and they laughed at him. They made jokes about it. I mean, that's what they do. They were joking, and that's a side of this T character that nobody had actually really seen before. Because he's always such a jokey guy. I mean, what's he doing talking about this black magic stuff? So that was fine. And, this kind of stuff continued on to the point where, he was asking other friends in that circle about voodoo, and all these different things. He was more stern. He was lashing out at his friends sometimes, and they were actually getting concerned that there was a real thing wrong. So the narrator decides that, hey, let's go take a trip. We'll take a trip camping this weekend, and small circle of friends go, like 4 or 5 guys. And, it'll be a time they'll relax. Once he relaxes, maybe, they'll see what's wrong. They can help him out or whatever. And anyway, so they're on this camping trip, and the narrator, the narrator's off for a walk. He doesn't know where this T guy had gone, and he notices down by this lake or a pond or whatever that T is sitting on, I can't remember if it was a picnic table or a rock or something like that. And he's back on to him, and he was like, what the hell is this guy doing? So he goes over, he's like, T, and he doesn't really get a response. And when he gets in front of him, he notices that T, his eyes are rolled into the back of his head, and he's just staring off over the water. And that's when he says, it is done. And so, this time, at this point, the narrator's kind of slapping him. Was like, what's wrong? Wake up. And anyway, when he came to, he kind of just, I'm just laughing at the Red Lives Matter. Anyway, he just, he kind of says, like, there's some weird stuff going on, and they start kind of trying to pull it out of him. And he says, you know what, I'll, after some beers, maybe, I'll let you guys know. He just said that there really is some stuff going on, but he had to, he's going to need to be good and drunk to let this story out. So that was the plan, and of course it never came to pass. What actually happened is they did the rest of their trip, and they go home. So now it's the following Monday, right? The weekend's done. Following Monday. So the narrator, whatever his name is, he's on his way to work, and he gets this phone call. And the phone call, I believe, was from T's parents or his wife or something like that. And he had just committed suicide, right? So like that just shocked him. He was like, wow, like really didn't expect that. I mean, they were just out at the at this camping trip. And so they thought that, at first, like they were trying to make sense of it, and they knew something was troubling him before the end, but they didn't know what it was. And so anyway, later on, and this was like 3 months later, because the narrator and some of his friends actually thought that maybe there was some black magic going on, maybe there was some kind of thing happening. And so when 3 months later, when T's wife phones the narrator guy, the guy telling the story, and she says something about T had this land, and in fact it was under dispute with somebody, and I guess she was looking for information or advice on how to deal with it. And anyway, when they start looking into it, and like, the narrator, he knew T's parents, and so he was talking to the parents and stuff like that. And of course, they were grieving. They didn't have, they really didn't care about the land. They were just so heartbroken that their son had died that they didn't dispute it. They just, take the land. And that's when the narrator start to look into a couple things, right? And like, for one thing, out in India, especially where black magic is often practiced, so it is said that they often use black magic as a way to get, whether that's land, or they want, somebody's possessions, they want money, or simply just to hurt somebody, right? You can use black magic against somebody to get that. And that's when they start to look over all these weird little things that T had mentioned over, the last period of time, trying and just analyzing what had happened. And T, as weird as it sounds, he actually used to keep locks of his hair in this basket next to, in his bathroom or something like that. And they used to make fun of him for it. And it just so happens that at some point, T had actually come running to his friends, freaking out one time that, a lock of his hair was missing, or several locks. There was also clothing missing from his house, and a watch. All of these things, like if you look into black magic cases, it is these kinds of personal things that are often used in a ritual. Hair is often there. Sometimes it's nails. Clothes is often there, but it's personal things, and then some kind of spell or whatever is done to get the desired results. So anyway, that's what they start to think about. They start to think that that's what must have happened. I mean, he complained about this. He said it was black magic, and then I guess to confirm it in the mind of the narrator, right after this phone call that he had with T's wife, he gets a voicemail, and the voicemail is from T. T is dead, right? So he gets this voicemail from T, which isn't possible. And in quotes, this is apparently what it said. It said, "Hey, buddy, there came a point where I was not in control of what I was doing. Please do not pursue this." And oddly enough, a few of the friends that were on that same camping trip, they got the exact same voicemail. They couldn't trace it to anything. It's T's voice, right? So I mean that's not normal. So that really confirmed it for the narrator, and of course, the people in that group that he was killed by black magic. apparently to get that piece of land that was in dispute, and the other person did get the land. So this is the point where I usually expect Ryan to chime in with his thoughts so I can gather together some thoughts of my own. But what I'm going to do is scroll back through the comments here and see. I know there was a couple questions here, and see if I can answer some more for you guys. Let's see. Gregory Myers. I've always wondered, do you guys get a lot of stories you would think are fake or from crackpots? Yes, we do, actually. The paranormal, as much as I love it, it does attract a lot of sketchy people. One example of something that was very seriously put to me, but there was just no way I could touch it, was a guy who had a serious porn addiction and was convinced that it was the work of the devil, and then he was a super religious guy and wanted to share his story with possession because he was addicted to pornography. Obviously, I was not going to be able to do that one up. So that's right. Anytime you see me freeze like I drank a cold drink, that's Ryan talking to me. It's not voices, I promise. Like weird voice. It's a voice, but not like, I'm hearing on imagined voices. So as Ryan said, we've had some pretty mentally unstable people, contact us as well, and some scary stuff, man. We've had some scary stuff. I mean, I think that's just part of being on the internet, but oh yeah, man, we've totally had some weird stuff. We don't put up everything. I mean, the way we look at it is, we look at something like we take everybody at the benefit of the doubt, unless it's like totally outlandish. I mean, we don't necessarily have to 100% believe in everything. I mean, if we can't say, oh yeah, that's definitely wrong or whatever, we'll put it out there if we think it's interesting, and then let everybody else judge. I mean, who are we to say what actually happened to somebody? Because that's the whole thing with the paranormal, is that it's weird, it's not normal, and it affects people in different ways. So we're in no ways trying to be a judge on that, but definitely there are some things that we have gotten that have been too out to lunch that we just couldn't believe it. It's just, sorry, it does not compute. We can't deal with that. Now, do you guys think George Street might be haunted by the ghost of Terrible? I've actually did the ghost walking tour on George Street. It was interesting. Of course there's been murders and stuff like that, and a couple ghostly stories like you get in any big city. I'm not real sure that I mean, it might be haunted. I've heard some stories of people saying, okay, well, I actually had an uncle. He had an apartment out there, and for him, he would actually feel at night, he would feel like the presence of someone sitting on the bed, like it would actually depress, like the body was there, and he would have his wallet and things like that would often disappear and show up in the same part of the house. And ironically, I was actually speaking to someone at work tonight who also had a relative that stayed out that way and had almost word for word the exact kind of experience. So I think there are things like that, but at the same time, I don't think you're gonna hear your Skinwalker Ranch stories and stuff like that. I mean, not that I don't think there's crazy stories out there, but because it is a really old place, but hearing about it is just, I find it really hard to track down stories in this province, truthfully. A lot of it's passed down in families. So I guess if you were, I don't know, if you went to some small communities and went door to door, if anybody was willing to open up, you might find some stuff. But other than that, you can't go on the internet and really find anything, because I've tried. I've even tried reaching out, in the paper and some internet mediums and stuff like that. So yeah, that I hope answers that question. Let's see. What else do we have here? Did you guys enjoy the Daru story? I don't know what that was. The Darrow story. Yeah, it was all right. I mean, I don't know what I think of it, to be honest. It was different, but I don't know what I think of it. I mean, as long as I'm being honest. Now I'm gonna throw the floor open to you guys for a second here. Anything in particular that you want to hear about or ask or a- anything like that? Let's see. Let's see what we got here. Spirit phone's a legit thing in theory. Uh, I don't know, Ryan. I feel like I'm looking like a crazy person here because I'm answering questions with you on the headset and no one else can hear it. Maybe Ryan doesn't exist. Maybe I created Ryan and I'm actually typing for him right now, and that's why he's not here. I'm just batshit crazy, and he's no, he's here. Okay, so how about then if I grab a random story off our website that we haven't covered before, and let's shoot from there. I have actually been meaning to do. We've wanted to do more shows. I mean, truthfully, we wanted to do a ton more shows, but real life just really got crazy, especially for me in the past little while. So it's been really hard to do it. I actually got a little Newfoundland story right here. There's one. It's a common story. It's one that no doubt you've heard in different cultures. You've probably heard it on several different ghost shows from Britain, from Europe to the U.S. They're all kind of, every place seems to have the same story. So I'm going to do this one. It has to do with a woman in white, right, on the side of the highway, that kind of thing. So let's do that. And I got two screens going here now. All right, so this story was actually sent in to me by used the name of the lady in white. I guess I wanted to be anonymous. Remember how I said I actually had reached out to I guess people in my local area for Newfoundland, hoping that I was going to get some response for local stories, especially that if I could go and check it out. Well, this is like the only story that came into me. So this took place 15 years ago. The person in the story and a friend was living in a really small place called Benoit's Cove, which is it's kind of like, it's not very far from, like, if you're looking at Newfoundland, you're looking at the map, you got Corner Brook, you got Benoit's Cove, you got Stephenville, Pasadena. They're all in kind of like, a similar hop, skip, and a jump away. And so at that point in time, the two friends were driving from Benoit's Cove to Corner Brook. And anyway, the towns were roughly a 25-minute drive apart. Like I said, a hop, skip, and a jump. And he said he can vividly remember, while they were driving, that night was really, really, it was raining really, really hard. And so hard, in fact, that the car windshield wipers were on max and they couldn't keep up with the rain that was falling down. It was still causing some obscurity in their vision. So they also noticed that there was an unusual amount of frogs out on the road. And this was around Cooks Brook by Mount, the Mount Moriah stretch. For anybody who knows where this is. And anyway, a lot of these frogs were dead from being ran over, of course. And anyway, while they were on this drive, as they approached, Cooks Brook's Bridge, and more frogs seemed to come out. But just before they got to the bridge, they got this really chilling feeling in the pit of their stomach. And what they noticed was what appeared to be a woman with long white hair and what happened to be a long white veil, kind of shrouding it somewhat. And she appeared to be glowing white, not just white, but glowing. And anyway, they were really freaked out by the sight of her, and she was also hitchhiking toward Corner Brook. And for anybody who grew up in Benoit's Cove or other small towns outside of Corner Brook, you know, it's not unusual to see a hitchhiker. In fact, you know, for many years, people from that area would hitch up to Corner Brook and back. I mean, that was just, you know, it's even common today to some degree. But especially for like the small places outside the main city. So anyway, you know, it's not unusual to see someone hiking there or hitchhiking, but you know, to be glowing and stuff like that was really weird. So anyway, this friend or the two friends, they weren't, you know, they would pick up hitchhikers. I mean, it was a small places that they lived, and so they weren't really afraid of the people there. Everybody was trusting. I mean, even back when I was a kid, in the city, a lot of us didn't lock our doors at night. I mean, just to give you know, some perspective. So these are even smaller places. So yeah, a lot of hitchhikers did get picked up, and a lot of people hitchhiked. So anyway, you know, given that the weather was crazy like this, you know, he remembers asking his friend, you know, should we pick her up? And they were both kind of shocked, and they kept, you know, when they kept driving up the road a little bit further, you know, probably for a full minute, and noticed that, you know, or wait, I just fucked that up. Hang on. So they were driving up the road for maybe a full minute, talking about the fact that they had just seen her and trying to, you know, decide whether they're going to go back and pick her up. And when they decided to turn around in a driveway and head back towards Benoit's Cove to get another look, she was gone, right? She was absolutely gone. And nobody passed them in either direction. And like, just, you know, to give you some visual here, those roads are like, man, you're in the middle of nowhere. It might not be a long drive from like, you know, Benoit's Cove to Corner Brook or whatever, but it's like the middle of nowhere if you're on foot. There's not really anywhere to go. I mean, you could jump over the bank, I guess, but, you know, I mean, I doubt that was the case. Anyway, they looked and they didn't see her. So, anyway, to summarize this guy's story, or to bring it to a close, he didn't really believe in ghosts until that happened. And, of course, after that, you know, he's a believer. So that's his story, and I'm sure that you've all heard similar stories out in the U.S. and different parts of Canada where you have like a hitchhiker in white. You know, a lot of times it's you know, again, it's a hitchhiker in white, and they do pick her up, and they're like, okay, well, I live in such and such a place, and they drive there, you know, talking to her the whole time. And when they get there, they discover she's missing. They go up to the door. They knock on the door. And it's like, oh, yeah, that was my daughter. She died like 30 years ago on prom night or something like that in a car crash. So, yeah, that's one story there. See what else we got here. Any other? This is by the way, again, guys, if you guys got questions, I will totally answer them right now in between stories. Let's see what we got here. Ryan got sucked into some strange Mandela effect parallel world. Well, if it was going to happen to somebody, it would happen to Ryan. All right, because I said he was a figment of my imagination. Ryan thought it was so damn oh. I know what he's talking about. You know, I just realized that when other people watch this show, when it's uploaded to YouTube afterwards, I'm going to look like a fucking nutcase because I got you in my ear and I'm responding to shit nobody else can see. Yeah. Oh, can they? Okay. But I'm still talking to you and no one else can hear that. I have a crazy man. The devil's got my ear today. So, let's see what else we got here. I'll give you a story I don't think I ever shared before. That this actually comes from one of my friends. I'm not going to say his name. But I found it interesting. So, I mean, I told you guys before my own little story when I lived in this little town called Stephenville. And, I was gone to college. My wife was too. And we had our own little apartment in this apartment building. And we saw a UFO. So I'm not going to retell my story of it. But later that year, so that was the summer that we had that, experience. And then the following winter, we, I was in my second year, and that friend had actually came out to go to college too, and he was doing like a digital animation course. And so when I saw him, it was like almost through. It was like halfway through the first semester for him, and or mine too, I guess, or my third semester. Anyway, I told him the story that I had, with this UFO, and then he proceeded to tell me his own story. And the thing is, with this guy, like, he's such a, I'm not going to say serious. I mean, he jokes around and shit, but he does not fuck around with this stuff. Like, he's such on a straight and narrow. I mean, you wouldn't even think that he would believe in this kind of thing. And honestly, if it didn't happen to him, I don't think that he would. He actually went to the military, and as Ryan just said to me, he was a straight-laced army man, and he was, right? And anyway, so he was staying in the dorm. Poor bastard. But anyway, he was actually out in the hallways one night, and there was a group of them, like some younger people, a couple older people. There was even I think the janitor was there. And in the dorm, like all along the side of the wall in this particular hallway, it was glass, and you could see out into the sky and yada yada yada. And anyway, I guess they were just looking out the window when they noticed that there was this light in the sky and was moving very strangely. And they proceeded to watch this light for a while, and Lenny said, fuck, now this is live, I can't. Anyway, this is only the first name. So anyway, I guess I might as well just fucking say his name now. Lenny was watching it, and like he said that that's why I should never do these things live, eh? But anyway, he said the way that it moved and stuff like that was totally, it wasn't anything that obviously like our normal aircraft or anything that we knew of at this point could move. He said the way it darted around the sky, he said it was like a playful way. But not only that, the thing that I found interesting is that, he kind of turned and looked at me with this very serious look on his face. And he said, if I had to, pin it down or whatever, however he said it, he said, it's like that light could think, or those lights could think. And he said that, there was a younger guy with him. He was freaked right out. Everybody was kind of freaked out, but for me, it was the delivery of how he told me how it was a real, it's like, like it really hit him. And like I said, he was this, he was a bit of a badass, right? I mean, nobody would mess with him, even though he's the nicest guy and he's hilarious and stuff like that. But, when it comes to this stuff, I mean, you'd never ever expect to hear it from him or anything like that. So, that was I think the fact it came from him was what I found so interesting. The other interesting note is that it happened in the same place where I saw mine, in a similar time span. And I've actually heard, like I said, I mean, finding stories where I live is very hard to do. And I have heard that little town is a hotbed for UFOs. There was actually a U.S. Army base out there, and I actually visited it. I mean, I shouldn't say base; it was more like a bunker, and it was like they actually got it underneath ground. Like you can go up; it's disguised, right? Like you go up, if you're on the trail to it, you can see the door and the cement. It's kind of like a curved dome-like structure, but the top of it has all ground growing over it, like it has trees and shit like that, so it's very well camouflaged. And there's I don't know what's in there. Obviously, I wasn't going to break into it, but they only had the damn door locked with a padlock. I mean, anybody could go up there and break into it. But I guess, seeing as where it is, nobody's really too worried about that. My fear, of course, would be if you were to break in, if you were one of those people, you never know. I mean, those things could be loaded up with radioactive materials or whatever. I did, or at least poisonous materials, because I heard years and years ago that whole place was sprayed with Agent Orange, and apparently a lot of people had gotten cancer and stuff like that up that way because of it. So going back to some questions now before I jump on to another story. This is from Hunter, Midwestern Explorers. What is the weirdest story you guys have gotten but not posted? I'll tell you what. Well, I mean, for one thing, I'll tell you one little neat detail right now. I have 64 emails flagged. They are all podcasts. I actually just looked at my email right now. Or not podcasts. There's some story submissions that I haven't gotten to do yet because I'm so busy. I mean, part of me feels really guilty, but the other part of me is not because I don't want to do it. I will eventually do it. It's just that there's just so little time, so I haven't gotten to do it yet. But yeah, so there's 64 I don't even know. I mean, they could be the weirdest stories I ever got, and I don't know yet. But I will tell you, there is a story. I think we touched on it in one of our live not live, but me and Ryan were in person, live and in the flesh, and I think we touched on it. But it had to do with, it wasn't a story submission, more so as something that happened to us where I think maybe somebody that we knew died. I'm not even going to get into the details of that, but we'll just say that we humored the person on the other end. Not, I mean, you talk to people, you don't really think much of it. They were willing to do some kind of a spell. And anyway, to help the show or whatever. And I mean, truthfully, Ryan and I never really even believed it would do anything. We just humored the idea of it. Sure, go ahead. What's it going to hurt? And yeah, so that was the outcome. At least we think. There's a lot of weird coincidences with that. That was really bizarre. So that's probably the weirdest thing that I seen or had witnessed while being a part of this. I know that Ryan had a bunch of weird stuff happen as since we started doing this show. Now he's less cautious than me. With everything. In fact, when I can use Ryan as a guinea pig for stuff I do, because he's all the more happy to do it. But he's seen like shadowy figures in his house and stuff like that. To be honest, like I've seen a couple little things. I'll tell you one of the things that creeps me out the most. You guys are gonna make this happen to me tonight. Tonight is such a perfect. It's a perfectly cold night. It's your typical October, and it's not raining, so I was going to get in the hot tub because when it's cold out and you get that hot water, it's this awesome contrast. And of course, every time I get into these stories, I mean, sometimes it's because I'm researching it, I'll go out into the hot tub, and then I'm so paranoid that there's going to be someone behind me and it's going to come up and strangle me or something like that. Well, I'm just trying to lie back and look at the stars, right? So, yeah, you guys are going to make that happen to me tonight now. Yeah. Now, where was I going with that? See, usually I got Ryan to jump in here and kind of be like, all right, Will's gone off the rails. If I could, throw in some, what about this? But anyway, let me see what else we got here. Do you think there are different spirits in different parts of the world, or do they share the same spirit dimension? I really think it's a dimensional thing. I do think that different cultures, and this is for Greenfeld, this is your question there. I do think that it's a dimensional thing, and I think that, different cultures probably prey and target different spirits. So, I mean, the ones in India, for example, who are dealing with the jinn, and they're dealing with these different, while they call them gods, they could just as well be demons. We don't know. So they're dealing with different entities than, say, probably the one in Mexico where I forget the name now, but the one of death. What is it? The spirit of death or whatever. And there's actually a lot of interesting stories now. Now that I think about it, I'm sure you've heard about this before, but remember how I was talking earlier, and I said that sometimes like in India, people will have they'll get a lock of your hair and nails or clothes or whatever, and then they use that to do this ritual to curse and kill somebody. Well, another thing that they do, and I was thinking about this because of that death spirit, but what they'll do is they'll actually go to your house. I mean, it'd be somebody right? It could be like an acquaintance or even a relative. I mean, you never know who it's going to be, but they'll come to your house and they'll actually hide something in it. And you'll all of a sudden have all of this bad luck. You'll have all these. It's always I shouldn't say always, but it's usually a gradual process, and something that you can't pin down. Like, oh, I didn't get the promotion. Oh, I lost my job. Oh, my wife left me. Oh, it's like this gradual progression. And it's like, oh, well, everyone's mean to me all of a sudden. It seems natural. I mean, you have natural things. You have a natural explanation for these things. But, come to find out that, they're getting actually ill and stuff like that. And eventually they'll break down and they'll go to a healer or something like that. And they'll say, what's going on with me? And, at that point, someone who's proficient in their skill will be able to say, you've been cursed. And sometimes they'll say, well, go home and take a look around your apartment or your house and try to find anything that's out of place or that don't belong there. And they're like, well, where will I look? Because it's going to be hidden, obviously. And they'll say, you'll feel it. Just like go with your feeling, and eventually you'll find it. So, like, I even seen an episode on TV where there was like a restaurant, and they found it, like, because all the stuff was happening at the restaurant late at night, like the alarms would be going off and shit like that. And anyway, they found in the wall, actually, there was some kind of item that was put inside the wall, like actually sealed over, and that was the cause of their disturbance. Another case was this guy had found he had found in his house this card with that spirit on it. I can't remember the name. But yeah, so sometimes it's literally something in your house and in a place that you would never think to look. It could be in a floorboard, in a cupboard, it could be in an attic. It could be behind a toilet seat. You never really know where it's going to be. So that's something that happens. And black magic, I did do a little bit of looking at that at the little bit of time I had before I came home from work. When I was just finishing up or whatever. And, the thing about it is I guess a lot of people, especially people who are new to magic and they just get into it and they want to just run right out into it and cast these spells. And sometimes when you're doing any research or if you're watching a documentary or hearing a story, you'll hear that, there's a lot of caution that's supposed to be used with this. And the reason is that by doing it, if you're not very well versed in what you're doing, the same, I guess, curse can befall you, because it's not like, this is the way it was explained where I read it, was that it's not that by doing this curse, these evil deities or whatever come out and they curse you. It's that whoever protects you, whether it's a guardian angel or the higher powers that be, whatever it is, whatever they are, once you do something like that, once you put an attack on somebody like that, they no longer protect you. So those same spirits that you sent after, Joe Blow down the street that you wanted to, you hated that guy or whatever, those same spirits now have access to you, and all they really want to do is cause harm. So now you're a target. So there's actually, professionals, I guess, in that world who will, perform the black magic rituals for you at a cost. And, they know how to do it, I guess, under the veil of protection. But, of course, at least the the good ones, right? I mean, they don't just do that kind of a spell on somebody generally. I've seen some of these people who offer the service that they'll only do it if you can prove to them that the person that you're doing it to actually deserves it. So it's usually like a revenge thing. Somebody who deserves to be, it's got to be justified also in the eyes of the black magic practitioner. So, just maybe that'll make some people feel better. But then again, I guess there are those that can do it that don't even need a reason. In India, it's apparently common that black magic is done for a variety of different reasons. I mean, some people even say that long ago, it was the origin area for this thing, for this type of practice, where people from around different parts of the world would actually come there to learn the tricks of the trade, as it were. So, black magic is very complicated. There's actually a lot of different types of black magic. There's different gods that they pray to. There's different rituals that take place. I mean, some of it is as simple as, like I mentioned earlier, getting, a lock of hair and nails and clothes or whatever. Other people actually have to do rituals, apparently, where they decapitate people. I even read a case where someone was decapitated and the head was put on an anthill. Right, so some of it's pretty gruesome. So let's see what else we got here. What kind of paranormal shows are your guys' favorite? I really love the old Art Bell. To answer you, Gregory, Art Bell was probably my favorite paranormal radio show of all time. I've re-listened to several episodes, but when I'm looking for a podcast, because one of my favorite things to do is put on a podcast before I go to bed, and I usually doze off listening to it, not because I don't find it interesting, but I just keep it going, and I do a different search every time because I don't know what I'm looking for, but I just do a search on something that's kind of in my head. I do a lot of near-death experience. That's one of my favorite topics, I think, because the thing that scares... I mean, you think of it. I'm a fan of the paranormal. Just like, you guys are. Obviously, you wouldn't be here. And for me, I need something really potent to kind of freak me out. And I guess my trigger is stuff that I don't have when I don't have control of something. And one of the things, the ultimate things that we don't have control of, is where we go when we die. And no matter how many the stories I've read, how many I've listened to, what scares me the most is that there are stories of good people going to bad places and bad people going to good places. There doesn't seem to be a way that you can prepare. I mean, you could say that, yeah, I'm going to live the life of a good man. I'm going to do charity. I'm going to do whatever. But that don't seem to be enough for a lot of people. Like, a lot of people just have these experiences that seem to defy what we believe happens based on our life choices. So that's something that really freaks me out because it's something that no one can avoid. We're all going to kick the bucket. We don't know when, we don't know how, but worst of all is we don't know what's going to happen after. I mean, is it eternal? Is it, like, if you end up in a bad place, is there a way out? Is there a way to redeem yourself? I don't know. And the worst part of it is that I'm not going to get my answer until it happens, and then it doesn't matter. I can't change it anyway. So I think that's the creepiest thing for me. So I listen to a lot of those stories going to bed because, that's real normal, and I'm normal. So there's that. The other thing that I look for, and of course, we cover a lot of user-submitted stories, of course. But, when we do a story, you'll often see that we often do a weird stuff, right? I mean, we find the weirdest stuff that we can find because we're as big fans of this stuff. I mean, we've been watching the paranormal shows, listening to paranormal radio, and now in the modern times, you have paranormal podcasts, you have YouTube, you have a whole hodgepodge of different things. And so it's not that, I guess to a degree we're jaded. Maybe it's like, it's just like a drug. You need more to get that potent, what's going to get you off this time. You need more of it. It needs to be more powerful. So we're always looking for the most obscure, strangest type of stuff. And truthfully, one of my favorite things with stories is other cultures. Different, like we're in the Western world, right? So we've heard everything in the Western world. All of our shows are almost all Western based. Not that they're bad. I mean, we got a lot of great stories, but the different cultures is more alien to us because it's culture we're not used to, it's customs we're not used to, stories we're not used to. And so when we did the Jinn, that was really interesting. When we look at stories from India, when we look at stories from Russia, when we look at stories from Germany, it's really it's a different look at things, and it's really cool. And that's actually part of what's going to make this Halloween special we have done so cool, is that it's a different culture, and it's a top 10. I picked out 10 stories. I mean, it's a really big episode, and so there it's going to be really long, and there's 10 great stories in there. And like I said, I've just kind of gone the extra mile with that one to try and give you guys a really cool Halloween one, especially as the we haven't done as many shows lately. So yeah, I mean that's something that I'm hoping you guys are gonna dig, and I'm really hoping to have it up on Monday. Yeah, so we've just crossed the 1 hour mark, so I'm gonna throw the door open for anything else that you guys want to say, and or if anything you want me to discuss on this episode before we call it a night, and I'll do my best. So far, it looks like quite a few people are romanticizing over Ryan. And Ryan just told me he got a boner. So, no, I'm just joking. But yeah, Ryan's doing a little bit of swearing at me here now. Yeah, so Mr. Kruger or Mrs. Kruger seems to really dig you, I think, Ryan. Her and... Okay, so Ryan has a new fan. And Gregory likes me too. That's good. I can feel good about that. And Evan loves you too in a kind of an incestual way. But no, I'm just joking. Fuck, I gotta keep in mind I'm live here, right? God only knows. Back the fuck up, right? Back on the rails. Okay. What do we got? Do you believe it's actually possible to sell your soul to get something? You know what? I do. In fact, I don't think it's selling in a traditional sense. You could call it that, maybe, but I do think that you can give something to get what you want. And yeah, I do think that a lot of rock stars did it. I do think that, man, I've actually got stories from people on the site. I don't know if I've ever covered them at all, but some of the ones that I got, like, what one? I'm talking to Ryan. Everybody. Her dad? Oh, right. Yeah, that one. No, I definitely would not do it, Jesse, or Jess. There is nothing that I would sell my soul for. No way. I mean, you're talking about an eternity there. We did get a story from a woman. She was an artist. She had gone to school, and her dream was to be an artist. And when she got out of school, she had this really big stroke of luck. She got into she had her pieces displayed. She was really moving up in the world, making big money, and had a really bright future in it. And what happened was she actually had a dream where this guy shows up. It wasn't even the devil, or as far as looks were concerned, that had tried to get her to, basically, I'll give you success if you just, sign this piece of paper, give me your soul or whatever. But even in her dream, she could sense that there was something off about it. And of course, it was so profound to her, so beyond your typical dream, I guess, and what a dream feels like, that when she woke up, she actually gave up her whole career. I mean, she quit art. She she got right out of it. And to even go a little bit further, my wife, that's one of her biggest fears, right? Is that because the devil doesn't necessarily show up in in red and wearing hooves and shit like that, and he's like, hey, I'll sign this. I got a hot pen for you or whatever. It's not like that. I mean, the whole thing with the devil is deception. It's trickery. So he shows up in a different kind of way. And my wife, of course, I tell a lot of these stories to my wife, and one of her fears is that she'll dream it, and she'll give permission in her dream, and it'll be done. In fact, she's actually had nightmares where that happened, where she woke up and she was actually praying to herself, like, as she woke up. So it might sound a little bit silly, but it is something that it happens, I think, more often than anybody thinks. Oh man, that fucking McDonald's. Why oh why would I get McDonald's? It's never a good goes down easy, but it don't sit well. So let's see what else we got. Yeah, Ryan's right. There is a complicated bargain with selling your soul. And thank you, Gary. I'm glad that you think that we rock. And we're more than happy to have done your show. And you know what? I understand you being nervous about being on, any live stuff. If it's something you're not used to, it's a little bit, takes a little bit getting used to. So I understand that, but only do with what you're comfortable with, right? I mean, just keep in mind the kind of people that see it, and if you're cool with what could happen, well, I mean, obviously I'm cool with it. I really don't give a shit what anybody thinks. I'm here live. Okay, so fine print, yes. I'm just looking for comments here before we clue this up. Some people say, okay, I'm in Z. Okay, some people say you can communicate with passed on loved ones. Ain't they busy in the afterlife? And some say anything you communicate is a demon or demonic. Okay, that's a good question. And to quote Family Guy, can it be both? Right? Because I do think that there are spirits that can come in and pose as a relative and so on. And get okay. So this comes from Ryan. He just incoming message from the big giant head. He said that in the Bible, that is the way that it is that the dead go to heaven. The evil are left behind, and so any spirit that you're communicating with will, that the evil go to hell, and so who you're, I'm just mumbling up his message, but I think you get what I'm saying. He thought I had a stroke. Well, that's coming. I'm pretty stressed out. So anyway, that's my opinion on it, is that you're gonna get some people who, you could communicate with a spirit, and the spirit is, the spirit is who it is, right? I mean, we had the calls from the dead and stuff like that obviously didn't, then again, there's the argument that they just know what the dead. I don't know. Let's just say this: the Bible label everything is okay. Ryan, I I'm not gonna go with that message. Ryan's telling me to do bad things. The voice in my head is telling me to do bad things. All right, all right. Anyway, the long and short of it is, I'm gonna have to get Ryan. We're gonna have to get some software to get Ryan in here because I can't remember the whole message you just told me. But my message is that there's good spirits. I do think that you can communicate with some of the dead, but I don't necessarily think that it's always who you think it is either, right? It's just like online. I could come on. Actually, this modern story just happened recently. Some fucker from Bangladesh or some shit tried to hack our website, and from everything I could tell, he failed miserably. But anyway, he's taken Ryan's name, so everywhere he posts with this shit, he even got email going out with Ryan Sharpe's name on it. In fact, I even so if you get anything weird from Ryan, he's saying it's not from him. He has no intention of sending weird emails. So yeah. I mean, that guy's going to... But if you got an email from him and it says Ryan Sharpe, you're going to assume it's Ryan Sharpe. So much so that I actually responded to a message from the fake Ryan Sharpe last night on my Skype. So, yeah. I mean, that happened. So, just like the spirit world, I guess you could say it's just like online, right? I mean, you really don't know who is who on the other end. It can be anything. You can pose as anybody. Yeah. So, on to another question. Hey, Will, have you ever gone to a graveyard at night? Yes, I have. I actually got a little story if you want to hear it. So I did this a couple times. I mean, being a fan of this shit that I am. And as a teenager, I had a friend, okay, and we're just going to call him Scramble. that's the name that... that's the name that I coined on him. And anyway, he was into this stuff too, right? He was a funny guy. And this one night, man, it was like super foggy. And there was like 4 or 5 of us at this place that we used to hang around downtown. And we were all having a cigarette and shit like that. And we were just kind of standing around having a chat. And so Scramble gets on this, we should go and visit this graveyard. He heard the stuff about this one that's like all the way across, like, we call it across the bay. And I was like, okay, that sounds like a plan. And this guy shows up. I knew his name. I knew who he was, but, I know him to see him, but I don't really know him. But anyway, he was like high as a kite, right? And it was a cool night. Like, we got in this car. It was so foggy that, like, we had the window cracked like that. And you could see the fog actually seeping in the crack of the window. And he had that new Tool Lateralis album. So I guess it was around 2002 that this happened. And he had to drive so slow because it was just so obscured by fog. It was one of the thickest nights of fog that I've ever seen. And we made the slow drive over to the graveyard. And anyway, when we got there, I mean, the driver, I mean, he was paranoid anyway because he was stoned. And he was also, he was kind of creeped out with the stuff anyway. Like, I think he liked it, but he was a bit creeped out. And I was looking out of this side and the back, and then everybody else, I didn't realize this till after, they were looking on the other side. And we were driving through, like, there was a little, like, I guess, narrow road going through the graveyard. And, like, they start freaking out, whoa! And I thought that they were seeing what I was seeing, because what I was seeing was this big red light that just got, like, bigger and bigger and bigger out in the middle of the graveyard. But anyway, the driver, I mean, he freaks out. He spins around. He, like, speeds out of there. Keeping in mind, you can't see, right? Like, we can't even see in front of us. And he gets right out to the entrance, and he stops. And we're all like, go back, and he's like, no way, I'm not fucking going back. You guys can walk home if you want to do that. And so, he ends up start driving home. And that's when we were discussing it, and I realized that I didn't even see what they saw. They said that they saw this like big pillar of something. Like I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was something different that they saw come out of the ground or something. And on my side was this big, this red light that started in the middle of the graveyard and just like blow up. And I think the part that stuck with me the most was that it was so foggy, and the guy was driving home so fast that he hit something, and he just kept going. And like years later, I brought it up to one of my friends, and he was like, "Man, you know that there was a hit and run, and some guy died that year around that time." But like we know that it wasn't that because it was too small. But when he first told me, I was like, "What? Really?" So that was a bit trippy at that time. It was a good night overall, though. So yeah, that's my graveyard story, I guess. Oh, and another thing. There was this other graveyard that was abandoned that is mostly overgrown, right? It's this really tiny one that was neglected or whatever. It's not like a public graveyard anymore. And anyway, it was, again, I was with Scramble, and it was like I don't know, like 1 a.m. or something like that. And like where I live in this really small city, especially where we were, there's like nobody out at that time. Like if you go out like 1 or 3 a.m, the only place you're gonna find people is at on the stretch of bars and shit. Everywhere else is just a ghost town. You can go out and you will not see anybody except the very rare car that is on a main road. So where we were, we didn't expect to see anybody, and this old guy, or not old, but maybe like, I don't know, early 50s maybe, walks into this graveyard. He was walking his dog, and he had a garbage bag, and he walked in there, and when he came out, he didn't have it anymore. And we're like, what? He just go and like throw some garbage in a cemetery, right? Desecrate a cemetery. But I think we were just as kind of like confused about like what this guy is doing out there 1 a.m. and shit like that. And anyway, we went looking the next day and couldn't find anything. But we start to wonder. You think he had a body in there? You think it was his wife? So yeah, I mean that's all I got for graveyard stories. I mean, truth be told, my own stories suck. I got a handful of them, but they suck compared to the ones that we get. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, Ryan tells me there's a lot more questions, so I'm gonna see what we got here. Longfoot is not a question. Oh, how's the baby? The missus is doing. You know what? She's doing really good, Gregory. She's I mean, she's ecstatic that we had a baby anyway. I mean, we both wanted one really bad, but she's wanted one forever, and so she's tickled pink now that she's got her own little boy. Me too. And she's she really bounced back. She had a C-section, but she really bounced back really well from that. I think the biggest adjustment is the sleep, especially because she's off on maternity leave, and I work full time, so she has to look after Isaac all through the night, and as you know, newborns got to feed like every 3 hours, so I think that's probably the hardest part. But outside of that, really good. Like the first couple of weeks, I think she had postpartum depression, but right now she's pretty good. In fact, tomorrow I'm taking her dinner somewhere, so there's that. Okay, so next question. What do we got here? Wither away the man in your brain. I'll drink to that, Hunter. Yeah, tonight you are, Ryan. I'm speaking to you like you're here. Fuck, I'm gonna look like a nutcase. Okay. I don't think you can. I don't think you can't communicate with a spirit in heaven or hell. That's a good question, Greenfelds. That is a good question. I'm not sure. I'm trying to think back to a lot of different stories that I read. Uh, I'm trying to think from the point of view of someone in there if they could communicate with someone, but I'm not sure. I might come back to that. Uh, Mrs. Kruger saw her dad. Um, okay, yeah, and you know what? That's a good point, Mrs. Kruger. I've heard a lot of stories like that. Actually, my mom. Actually, I have a lot of family that work as like nurses at the hospital, and I've heard quite a few stories from people who work there who have seen apparitions of people who have passed on, especially like residents that some of them who were really close with the staff and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't think that they're demons either. I think the real question is, I mean, really, you have to kind of pull the stories to see, uh, the percentile. But you have two different kinds of hauntings generally. You have your, what's it called? Damn it, the word's escaping me now. You got the ones that repeat, um, residual hauntings where it's like a something that just plays out time to time, like one of those queens that was beheaded, and you'll see like Anne Boleyn, for example, I think in the Tower of London, and she's always, people always see her walking down the one of the aisles with her head tucked under her arm. That if it plays out the exact same way every time, it's like a recording, and that would be a residual haunting. Whereas the other kind is where there's some kind of interaction, a an interaction that's different. Maybe you have multiple interactions, but there's a level of intelligence of communication between you and the spirit, or vice versa. And I think they both exist, and that's a good point. So if that's the case, yes, I don't think that they are demons. That's a good point. So going back to the earlier story, do I think that all spirits that you communicate with are demons, as they some of the religious people will say according to the Bible? No, I don't think that that's the case. There's far too many stories to kind of corroborate the idea that there are, like we just said, there are people who have interactions with spirits who have gone on an intelligent level. So okay, that's that. What else do we have? Wait, so the guy sending me that might have been Ryan Ahmed, the demon zombie porn. Ryan gets into some weird stuff, but he probably thought you would like it. So, yeah. Let's see what else we got. Needs to be careful. Da, da, da. By the way, I'm sorry to kind of drone on doing this. I'm just really quickly going through here. So Ambry Lone had a little story. Went to a step cemetery in Bloomington, Indiana, a few years ago. Legend had it, if you sat on this particular stump within a year, you would be dead. 6 of us went. The only one that did it died. Okay, cool. Well, I mean, not cool that they died, but cool that the story. It actually reminds me of this chair that Unsolved Mysteries did an episode on it. I can't remember the name of it, but there was a chair at this pub where there was a guy. He was wanted for something, I don't know, murder or whatever, and they killed him. And he said something like, "Curse the man who sits in my chair," or whatever. And it became like this I guess urban legend around there that whoever sat in the chair would actually die. And there was a string of people who actually did it. They had a sign up that said Busby stoop chair, and they had a string of people that actually sat on it and died. And they even had a sign up, sit at your own risk. And of course, everybody who did it, I mean, there's always somebody that's like, "Oh, that's bullshit, I'll do it." And I mean, they just had a string of people like that. And so yeah, eventually what they did is they bolted it up at a level that you can't sit on it, right? So yeah, that's what it reminded me of. Let's see what else we got. My dog passed away. That's terrible. That's terrible. I feel for you there. I'm an animal lover myself, and I lost one of my familyhood, or like family cats that I've had for most of my life. A couple of years ago, actually, we did a podcast. And I threw him in there, but yeah, sorry to hear about that. Ancestral reflections. That, so they heard of okay. I heard a voice calling the name 3 times. You know what? That's. Did you have any other family members who knew the dog that passed away as well? That would be an interesting correlation, perhaps. That maybe it was to let you know that the dog was safe and happy with one of your other relatives that passed on. Maybe I'm spitballing, but it's possible. Let's see. Her 3 mysterious was 3 days after saying bye and laughing. It's weird. The laughing part throws me off a little bit. Yeah, the laughing part throws me off a little bit. So with that said, I guess I should probably call it here. Because honestly, I was going to use the rest of the night to try and get that music stuff done in our Halloween podcast. Are there any final questions? Whatever's asked in the next minute, that's the one I'm gonna the ones I'll answer. I'll answer anything asked in the next minute, and I'm gonna start with Ahmed. Got one there, and I'll get Ryan to tell me his perceptive. Ahmed, I'm just gonna take whatever comes here, and the next minute I'll give you guys a minute. Once it hits 11:28 for me, I will start answering. Let's see. Come on, folks. 1 minute. Get typing. Ryan said he is aware of the Devil's Bible, and he has gone through. Can you repeat that part again, Ryan? He's looked through it several times, but he is unsure of how he feels about it. He's looked at what's available at least. So that's the answer to Ahmed. Um, Ahmed Z, do you think severe negativity or bad vibes can be a beacon for? Yes, bad vibes and negativity. Not only do I think it can be a beacon for hauntings and poltergeist type activity, but it can downright everything is energy, and that's something. The more you look into the paranormal, the more stories you read, and the more you actually analyze it. Energy is everything. Like if you, for example, something happens to you and you puts you in a bad mood, you'll often find that, like, say you're in a bad mood for several days, you'll have bad luck for those several days as well. Like whatever kind of energy you're vibrating at is what you attract. So if it's bad, you attract more bad, and vice versa. That's a big reason why people, I think, meditate and they try to cleanse themselves and to think positive. I mean, they even teach you that, like if you have depression or anxiety, and you ever get some coping mechanisms, like there's groups and stuff like that. If you go there, they'll actually tell you, try to teach you to, think positive even when you don't really feel like you have a reason to. You have to force yourself, because by creating that energy, you draw that energy to you. It really is I think you could nail it down to a scientist if you had to write, professionals looking at it, truthfully. Moving on. Greetings from Hollywood. We're headed to the Hollywood Cemetery. We'll cheer from Belle's grave. That's awesome. And thank you very much, Andrew. I'm very, very glad that you dig and support my music. I clap to myself because I'm the only one here. Thank you so much. Are you guys going to be on Midnight in the Desert? You know what, Hunter? We sent everything that was asked of us. We never heard back. I know that the guy that we were talking with said that if we didn't hear back, to email But I'm really not chasing people. Like I really don't give a shit that much. If somebody wants to have us on, we'll be on. But normally I'd say this to Ryan, but I'm just gonna say this out loud. It's something that I've been thinking more and more, because we've actually been jerked around a little bit in these different kinds of things with shows and stuff like that. And so I'll just state on the record right now that if a show was serious and actually wanted to have us on, if it's a paranormal show, I think I can speak for both of us and say that we'd be interested. But I really have no interest anymore of this fucking send us everything you do, everything about yourselves, jump through some hoops, and then maybe we'll see if you fit. Like, we got fucking 100 videos up there to look at. If they can't look at that and get a sense of what we're about and whether or not they'd want us, I really don't give a fuck anymore, because it's a waste of our time. And Ryan feels the same way. So, for any if future TV shows, should they pick this up or whatever, don't bother even contacting us unless you want us beforehand. We really don't have time for that shit. What else we have? Would we have, or maybe it's to me, would I have sex with a demon woman? Well, my wife was pretty angry when we had sex, so I guess that qualifies to some degree. I mean, sometimes we refer to her as devil woman, so maybe she wouldn't be appreciative if she saw this, but I think that qualifies. Okay, thank you all, especially Ryan and Will. You both are appreciated. Thank you, Mrs. Kruger, very much so. Do you have a downstairs mix-up? I don't understand what that means, Evan. Oh, Ryan tells me it's a dick vagina thing. No, I don't have a mix-up. I'm very male. Would I try it for a day? I don't know. I really don't know. That'd be, I don't know. Ryan, would you try it? I'm going to get his answer. If he could go right back, he would. But he would probably ruin himself. I picture him with bedposts, pylons. Okay, so what else do we have here? Cheers, guys. Thanks so much. Okay, you're welcome, Gregory. Glad that you dug it. Would you guys come play a gig in LA sometime? I don't know. I'll be honest with you on the topic of music. I love it in the studio. I mean, I did used to do some live stuff. I mean, I've done it before, but I really am at home in the studio. Like, I love the creative the creative aspect of it. Even the fact that I'm here is kind of ironic on a live stream, because I'm such a reclusive homebody, stick to myself, small circle of friends kind of guy. It's a wonder that I ever find myself in spotlight situations, because I tend to not like attention a whole lot. So I'm doing this live thing here. The podcast is pretty popular. I'm going to be on the radio on Monday, so I'm kind of a walking contradiction. But I really, if I had the right band with me, and I could do the whole tour thing, I might do something like that. But I really am not in a good situation to do that. It's just me. I mean, that whole album was just me. I couldn't even do it all by myself, because I just recorded everything, individually. So that would have to be my answer for right now. But who knows what the future could bring. And what else we got? Lots of compliments, which I dig. Let's see. I think that's it for the questions, maybe. My single favorite singer, band, rock genre. That's a good question. Okay, well, I don't know if I can narrow it. I can narrow it down to a small circle of people. As Ryan said, Maynard is one of my favorite singers from Tool. I also like Lane Staley from Alice in Chains, and what's his name? Chris Cornell from Soundgarden and Audioslave. Those guys are like some of my favorite singers ever. Each for different reasons. I love Tool. I love Alice in Chains, both the new and old. I like a lot of Marilyn Manson songs too. I don't know what everybody's feeling is on that, but I love the Nobodies and the Nobodies and Coma Black and Coma White and those songs. I loved Nirvana growing up as well, even though live they were awful. So yeah, I'm definitely a 90s hard rock kind of guy. I tend to go to the harder side of things. But I appreciate a really good melody and stuff like that too. Did I sign a deal with the devil to ensure the success of my new album? Well, no, it hasn't really been successful other than the fact that I finished it on time. But, you know, I mean, I knew that before I did it. I mean, to try and decide that that's going to be your life choice today to make money, I would never in a million years try to do that. It's just too many people trying. 20 years ago would have been a good time to try and get into the industry, but I think the music industry is dead today. I mean, we even see movie studios closing up today. You can almost see a correlation from the speed of the internet to the downturn in media. And, getting back to... Wait, no. I got Ryan talking to me one ear, and I'm trying to follow here, so I'm a little bit scrambled here. You guys should do a bar, restaurant, campfire show. I love the idea of it. The biggest complication me and Ryan have is that he's in one area in Canada, and I'm in the opposite side of Canada. So that's actually why we couldn't be on this episode together. The one that we did have together is because Ryan came home visiting. So we have to get some kind of software so that we can both be a source on this live thing. So we're looking into that. And thank you, Jess. I'm glad you appreciate my taste in music. AC/DC and Led Zeppelin. You know what? I do like some songs by both of those groups. Is not my generation, but I'll be honest with you. Like that, that's more from my mom's generation. And the irony is that I can look at my mom's generation of music and I can appreciate it. I can appreciate the melodies, the audio quality, and so on. But I hate today's music. I absolutely hate the cookie cutter, manufactured, soulless stuff. And I hate pop. I hate, fuck, man. The guys doing music today are more girly than the girls. It's unreal. I hate it. So, yeah, I never thought I'd sound like an old person saying, well, in my day. But, yeah, totally. I don't like today's music at all. Well, at least, the popular mainstream stuff. And, yes, I like A Perfect Circle as well. Actually, almost anything Maynard's involved in, I dig it. What else do we got? Curses from the Genie. What else? Thank you, Newfie boy. That's Ryan's cousin Justin. Ryan says, hey. Yeah, and I see you replied under him. I heard you before I read your comment. I need to send a picture of my EUS poster that's framed. Oh, cool. You framed it. Good on you, Hunter. Good man. Good lad. Okay, yeah, you know what, Justin? If you got a solution to that dual video thing, yes, for sure, send it to Ryan or myself, and that would be great. That would be awesome, actually. And then the next time we do a live thing, we can both be on, which would be a lot better. Let's see. Okay, so everybody is that your cousin, Ryan? See what Hunter says? Is that? Oh, cool. Right on. I really like that story, that Marsh one. By the way, for everyone else, if you're in the dark, we did an early episode where it was me and Ryan sharing some stories, and Ryan shared a story with his cousin that's in the chat here. Really cool. You should check that one out if you haven't saw it. So, Anthony, we're actually done. Sorry, man. I'll give you guys a quick, I guess, teaser of what the Halloween episode is that's coming though. That's coming. I'm really hoping to get it up on Monday. I'm just gonna say this: it's a top 10 thing from the Japanese culture, the culture that brought us, The Ring, and Silent Hill, and Resident Evil, and the Dark Souls series. They got real stories and they're fucked. So I got a top 10 that I put together, and it's going to be a really, really cool episode. Really hoping to get that up on Monday. But that being said, I'd like to thank everybody for, turning out. I mean, I didn't even announce it. I knew that Ryan threw it on Facebook, but honestly, I was just so busy and threw so much of my time into the Halloween podcast that this episode, I'm not even joking, all by the seat of my pants here tonight. I just popped on and bang. So I can ramble like the best of them, I think. So, that story that I mentioned earlier, Ryan just looked it up. It's called Tiny Town Phenomenon, and that's the one where Ryan talks about the. I agree with you, Ahmed, because they fucked that Silent Hill game that I wanted. Yeah, the one where Kojima and the PT. I played the PT demo. I actually got. It was Kojima, Del Toro, and what was the other guy? Norman Reedus from the Walking Dead. That was going to be an awesome game. I loved the demo. Everybody loved it. And what did Konami do? They went and fucking axed it. And you know what they did to screw everybody? Then they went and showed a teaser. Looked like a new Silent Hill game. And it was a fucking, what's it called? Like a pinball machine for an arcade or something like that. Right after that. So fuck those guys. I agree. Anyway, glad you guys dug the podcast, and if you missed it, like poor Anthony who just popped in, it will just show up on it'll just upload, I think, automatically, so it'll be on our channel, and we'll have to do more of this soon, and Ryan's cousin's gonna be sending him some I guess information on software we can get so we can both get in here. So this might be the new format that we generally do. And every now and then we'll do the big badass ones that we're going to do for Halloween, where it's got all kinds of quality control and shit like that. So yeah, we'll do those every so often, but these are a lot easier to do for us, and it just works in with my new schedule as being a dad a lot better. So I think that's our plan for the future. So with that said, everybody, good night, and be sure to tune in on, or just check our channel on Monday, man. It's going to be a kick-ass episode. I can promise you that. And we'll catch you next time. Goodbye, everybody. Have a good one. I'd love to get more stories from Newfoundland. It's something I actually reached out to in my... in my own, we have a Facebook community and stuff like that, and I've been in the paper and stuff like that. But I know there's stories here, but it's really, really hard to get people to come out and share it. Actually, the best story we got was what Ryan got by accident with his dad. I think it's like 8:15, Evan. But his dad got it at random at a restaurant. So that was really that was a bizarre. That's the Bell Island Devil, by the way, for those of you who have watched it. That's in Newfoundland. So I'm going to answer a couple questions here. Let's see. No politics. No worries. I don't like politics. Favorite podcast I've ever done? That's a really good question. Oh, what's my favorite podcast I ever done? Ryan's a Skinwalker. I'm not sure what mine is, to be honest. We've done so many great ones. I have a couple favorites. Honestly, the Bell Island one was one of my favorites. But my favorite version of it was the one Ryan first told me when it was fresh in his head. You guys didn't get to hear that one, but it was still a great story that you heard. We were supposed to interview him, and that never materialized. So that was one. Of course, Skinwalker Ranch is one of my favorite ones as well. The demonic possession one will always hold a special place in my heart because of the aftermath that happened to Ryan because of it. That was pretty cool. Cracks me up even now. I bring it up, the couple times we met during the show. I always bring that up. Remember that time when? Yeah, so that's a favorite of mine. The Black-Eyed Children when we did with the lady where it actually explained what it might be was another favorite. We got a lot. It's really hard for me to pick, but those are some that I really liked. What's my worst paranormal experience? For me, what's my worst paranormal experience? Honestly, when Ryan and I were into the what's it called? Not paranormal. The Satanism, theistic Satanism. A lot of strange stuff happened around that time. That we saw some stuff. I mean, some of our stories actually came out during that time. We've done a couple podcasts on it, but more than anything, it was like a real soul-sucking feeling that I had. It was a very dark feeling all the time that didn't really go away. That took a while to years actually to get out of that. And even today, I mean, there are pieces of that sometimes reach out and drag me back a little on a mental level. So that was an odd time. I really wouldn't mess with it today. Now, next question. How'd we meet? Well, we actually met through a crazy ex-friend. He was my really good friend for years, and he got into this flaky kind of way. I don't know how to explain it, but anyway, every now and then he would show up with different friends. Every so many weeks he had a new group of friends. And the stream was offline. Okay, well, it should start. Is up. You let me know you're in. Let me know when it starts. Why am I in a little window? It's up. Okay, so let me ask you this. Is the audio quality like usual when we do this, or is it shit like through my iMac? Do it so it sounds like normal on the good microphone. Okay. I don't know why. Am I a little box on your? Okay. Okay. I suppose we'll wait a couple minutes to see if we can get anybody in here before we. So it sounds good. Okay. We got Gregory Myers, Hunter, Kevin. Hello, folks. And Eski Malacheo. Okay, and we have Ryan. Okay, so we have 9 people. And Greenfeld and Kevin Fullington. Okay, so we got a couple people. I mean, we'll give a little bit, maybe 5 or 10 minutes to see if we get any people in here. Hopefully you won't experience a ton of lag. I can tell on my end that there's some lag because I'm in a freeze frame here on my screen. Ryan and I are in Skype, by the way. We really hoped that we were going to get this sorted out so that we could both be in a video at the same time. And truth be told, we really just assumed it would work. We just, the night before attempted to just okay, it'll work, let's test it, and then of course, oh fuck, a whole bunch of stuff, so we I should say this, Evan. Your brother is your favorite fan, your biggest fan. I respect that, Evan, because I know that my brother would not say that about me. So, couple things before we start. Really, the big Halloween episode, truthfully, it is recorded. It's not this one. This one's something a little different. The Halloween episode, I'm not even going to tell you what the topic is, but you know how, like, we do every now and then we do, like, this big podcast. I'll answer that in a second, Red Monk. So every now and then we do, like, an episode that's, like, way better than usual, right? It's one of our great ones. And anyway, you know those ones when we do it. It's our Skinwalker Ranches. It's our what's it called? The Mandela Effect. It's the hikers that got lost up on Dietlov Pass. So those are the big ones. Like, we know they're going to be big before we do them. And this Halloween one that we recorded, I know it's going to, it has the potential to be another one of those really great episodes. And one of the things I did that is still not done, but I started, I'm hoping to have done by Monday for Halloween, is I actually went in and recorded some background music. It's not like music like songs, but just something for to set the atmosphere and to kind of engage you a little more and bring you in. So I'm really hoping you guys dig that. And if you do, I plan to, maybe do a dozen when I have some time to do a really good job that I can recycle through some podcasts. Just, bam, from the Spice Weasel, take it up a notch. So that's the goal with that. And of course, if this live thing works out well, that might be something that we look into as well. I do think I should tell you guys a little bit about why we haven't been as active. Like, you guys knew that, you knew some of the stuff leading up. I was having a baby, and because of that, I did an album before he was born, yada yada. And by the way, Red Monk, my boy is doing awesome. In fact, I look forward to seeing the little guy every day. He cracks me up. So, what that's actually a big part of why we haven't been doing as much lately. That, like, I knew it was going to take up time, but I never thought it was going to be as time consuming. Not that it's a bad thing, but it just makes doing what we usually do really hard, because it was such a time sink already. So what we're looking at, doing this live stuff here, this is a possible way for me to really cut down on the time. Like, I don't have to record it. I don't have to edit it the same way. There's a whole bunch of stuff that I get to cut out of the process. So if this works out really well, this might be the regular format we do. And every now and then we'll do like a special one, like the Halloween one, and like some extra, like, atmospheric music will be thrown in and so on. And I feel like there's something else I was gonna say, but I'm drawing a little bit of a blank here. But oh, right. The other reason is I don't know if you guys remember, we signed with a network. Really, really bad decision on our part. It really wrecked stuff in a way beyond what we thought was a worst case scenario. So I've already gone through the process to try and separate. And not too many specifics, but needless to say, it needs to happen before we can do this the way that we want to do it. So that's that. Now, with that said, we got a couple people here. So thank you for the congrats. And that was for Amber Lone. Thank you, Walter. I should say right out of the gate, is there anything you guys ever wanted to ask before we even start the show? We'll have like a little bit of I'll answer you right now on the stream. Shoot, get some stuff out there. We should have asked that and took the answer. That's right. Ryan's telling me, by the way, that stuff. He's my little coach in my ears. All right. Oh yeah. anyone that's in Evan, I know that you're here in Newfoundland. I'm going to be on CBC Radio Monday, doing a little bit on Halloween, so that you should tune in for that. Um, More stories from Newfoundland. Acted like he was best friends with them, and I hadn't talked to him in a long time at that point. And then when we uh, met up again, Ryan was just in his car, and along with another two people I never knew. And Ryan and I were in the back seat, and I believe we began to discuss video games, which were not something that our other friends were into at all. And we start talking about the Elder Scrolls Morrowind, which at that point neither one of us knew anybody else who played it, and both Ryan and I were like extremely big fans of it, and so that was some common ground. And then it turned out we were both into like the paranormal and ghosts and stuff. And then it just so happened that he lived right next to where I lived, and we didn't know it. So we were back and forth to one another's house almost every day, and just experimenting with the paranormal, like trying to create stuff. I had all these different musical projects that I'd get Ryan to try and help me come up with weird sounds. Just finding anything around the house to record, and yeah, so that's where it started. It was pretty cool. Actually, I got a lot of fond memories of back then. So we had for anybody who's just joining, Ryan wanted me to mention that he's not on the stream. He is in the chat, but he can't. We couldn't get this to work the way we wanted to. We really did leave it to the last minute, and we thought it would just work. Just totally never. So this is more of a test for right now. And as I said to the original people that came in, the big Halloween episode is still coming. It's recorded. I'm just throwing in a bit of extra bells and whistles, and that is I'm hoping to have it up for Halloween, like on Halloween. It's going to be a kick-ass episode. I'm very much looking forward to the feedback on that. So with that said, how about we kick stuff off, and like as we go along, after I tell a little story, if someone wants to jump in and share a little bit or ask some questions, great. And I might just take some stories at random from the website that we haven't covered yet, and just do this totally on the fly by the seat of my pants kind of thing, and just see how it goes, and if this is something that maybe we should do more often. Okay, so the first story I want to start with is originally what our plan was to do some stories on the black magic, people who have been murdered through the occult. This is a freaky thing. There's no control over that. Like, you don't have control over somebody else, what they're going to do. And even to, diagnose that you have that problem, who do you go to? It's a very, like, most people would think that they would be thought of as crazy if they were to go to anybody, not to mention who can really help. Right. So anyway, this is a story I came across on the internet. Now, India is a place that's known for having, a lot of black magic there. Is actually very prominent over that way. And so I came across this story. And of course, it comes from India. It comes from, a native from there. And anyway, I don't know what his name was. I'm just going to refer to him as the narrator. And the friend that actually happened to, he uses an alias, what he calls, that's cool, Hunter, what he calls T. Okay, so anyway, him and T, they were really good friends, and they were a lot of like how I am with me and Ryan. I guess we got a lot of layers, but I had a friend one time named Paul, and like the only real thing that we really shared is like a sense of humor, right? I mean, that was it. Whereas like Ryan and I got the humor, we got the paranoia, we kind of got all this stuff going on, but this guy's relationship with his friend is like my old friend Paul. It's like we had the humor, and that was about it. There was no seriousness. There was no whatever. And so anyway, they worked at the same place of business, and the narrator, he just happened to be in this position because his friend T, he wanted to get this promotion. In fact, he was looking forward to getting this promotion for, there was a sweetheart he had that, he felt like he had to have this promotion in order to make that work, bring her in. And so anyway, the narrator, he actually had some, I guess, information about who was doing the hiring that only he was privy to, that he was able to share with, his friend to help his chances. And so he did. He shared the information. He got his, he got his wish. He got the promotion. He got his wife. He got to marry her. So leading up to that, when she was a fiance, all was well at first, and then the friend T started to come around, and he had some weird questions that started to get around their circle of friends. Like one time he came around asking about black magic. If anybody had known anything about black magic, and they all thought it was weird, and they laughed at him. They made jokes about it. That's what they do. They were joking, and that's a side of this T character that nobody had actually really seen before. Because he's always such a jokey guy. What's he doing talking about this black magic stuff? So that was fine. And, this kind of stuff continued on to the point where, he was asking other friends in that circle about voodoo, and all these different things. He was more stern. He was lashing out at his friends sometimes, and they were actually getting concerned that there was a real thing wrong. So the narrator decides that, hey, let's go take a trip. We'll take a trip camping this weekend, and small circle of friends go, like 4 or 5 guys. And, it'll be at a time they'll relax. Once he relaxes, maybe, they'll see what's wrong. They can help him out or whatever. And anyway, so they're on this camping trip, and the narrator, the narrator's off for a walk. He doesn't know where this T guy had gone, and he notices down by this lake or a pond or whatever that T is sitting on, I can't remember if it was a picnic table or a rock or something like that. And he's back on to him, and he was like, what the hell is this guy doing? So he goes over, he's like, T, and he doesn't really get a response. And when he gets in front of him, he notices that T, his eyes are rolled into